Starting us off in the C tier is going to be 8767 Dark Horse Robotics. Now, Dark Horse Robotics clearly belongs on this list just due to their point contributions alone. That being said, they have a couple issues which are keeping them on the lower part of the C tier, those being their shooter. Now, you see this most in auto, but also even in teleop, where when they shoot the ball, sometimes the balls that they shoot collide mid-air and either one or none of them make it in. And so, yes, they have a shooter. It is not always the most consistent of shooters. Additionally, their intake, I never really saw it working in competition. Now, what they do is they herd balls into their human player and are human fed, but I didn't really see them picking balls up out of the center and pulling them in. Now they herd them in. And so, that being said, I think they do contribute a lot of points, which is why I put them at the C tier. I just don't think their bot quite was up as high as some of these other robots. Speaking of which, our next robot would be 9685 Crystal Oscillators. Now, 9685 has a solid C tier offense. I mean, their shooter is shooting like other robots in this tier. It might be a little bit slower than some of them, but it's consistent. It's shooting. It's scoring. Additionally, this robot can hang, and they can hang in auto as well as in endgame. So I think that is something that is very valuable that they contribute to the alliance. If you're looking for a hanger, Crystal Oscillators is definitely a good hanger. Next up is Red Storm Rookies. Now, Red Storm Rookies, I never really saw them use their intake or shooter. They have it on their robot, but they never really seemed to use it much. They were much more focused on being a solid defense bot. And if you're looking for a solid defense bot, I would definitely look at Red Storm Rookies. Red Storm Rookies, while they're not going to be good at taking shots and bumping the robots, making sure they miss their shots or things like this or preventing that, what they do instead is they do a very good job of area control and bullying robots. What I mean by that is they force robots to maybe take longer routes or go over the ramp or do things they're not comfortable with doing. And that's where Red Storm Rookies really shines, is they're able to prevent those robots from taking the most optimal path. And I think that's a good, solid defensive strategy. That also means that they are very solid at counter defense, meaning that they're moving the action of the field and the competition onto your alliance's side of the field, leaving your side of the field oftentimes more open and able to do what you need to do to score the points you need to do on offense. So as a second pick, I think Red Storm Rookies is a very solid defensive bot that is going to do what you need done. However, auto, I have not seen them do an auto other than moving out to the center field to get into the action sooner. So if you're expecting some robot to contribute an auto to help with that initial, make sure that the match starts going your direction, they aren't going to be able to do that. The next robot up is 7808 Kalkaska Dragoneers. Now, the Dragoneers, I thought, had very solid shooting. I thought they were very professional looking. They did a very good job, and their shooter looks good. The issue I have with the Dragoneers is their driving looks a little rough. And what I mean by that is it just seems like if they had some drive practice or more familiarity with their robot, that they would be able to be driving more smooth and they wouldn't run into issues like getting caught in balls or anything like this. They're actually going to be able to drive really well. And so I think they have a good robot. I think they do well. It's just the issue of how polished are they? And I think if they just spent some time polishing up and driving well, they would be much higher up on my list. But as they were at their last competition, they just needed some polish. The next robot on our list is going to be 3875 Red Storm Robotics. Red Storm Robotics is the epitome of what I expect to be as a C tier robot at this event. They are a solid offensive bot. They have a great auto. The issue I have with them and why I didn't move them up to C+ is their shooter sometimes is inaccurate. Now, it's not very inaccurate, but sometimes it's just not being accurate. And with them only having like a single stream, they just aren't scoring as much as they could. Now, additionally, I think one of the issues they run into is also they can be very bullyable by defense. If a defense is pushing them around, they have a hard time standing up to it. And so I think, yes, if they're let go and able to do their own thing, they are going to score a decent amount of points. You can't just completely ignore them. But on the other hand, they're not going to be the lead offensive power on your alliance. But that being said, they're a solid C robot that if you need that tertiary robot that's scoring when the defense is hammering on your good robots, this is exactly the type of robot you want in that situation. Now on to our C plus robots. Starting us off is 8423 Next Express. Now 8423, they have a good auto, they have a good shooter, they're good at feeding. The issue I have with them is that they are just too slow. And I don't think the slowness is inherent quality of their robot. I think it just comes down to a lack of drive practice and a lack of familiarity with the robot from their drivers. So I think it's entirely possible they show up ready to go, ripping and roaring, and way better than the C+, but until we see the evidence of it, I think this is a proper spot for this team. The next robot I have on here is 7656 MC Hammers. Now, MC Hammers have a great auto. They have a great bot. They shoot well. They drive well. The issue I have with them isn't with their technical skill in driving. It's just that sometimes I see them with plans or with strategies that I just don't understand. And it's why I don't want to put them in the B tier, because I think they have a robot and their technical driving skill could be in the B tier, but it's like sometimes they're just doing stuff that I don't understand as a scouter. And I'm not sure if it's something they planned ahead of time with their alliance or what, but it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And so like I would just be cautious. As anything, I mean, as a second pick, they are phenomenal. But as a first pick, it's like you're gonna have to make sure that what they're doing makes sense, and that just is why I put them in the C plus tier. The next robot is 9208 Eddy Circuit. Now they also have a great auto. They have a really good shooter. They drive smart, and they have simple plans, but they're really effective, and they're usually the smartest plans on the field. The only issue I have with them is I worry sometimes that their technical driving skill, things like avoiding being trapped on balls or quick turns and smooth transitions between zones, it's not bad, but it's just not as ideal as it could be. And so I think C plus is a good spot for them. And finishing out the C plus tier is 858 The Demons. Now, I was not impressed at all by their auto. When it was existent, it wasn't impressive, and there were even matches where they just didn't do anything. So that's not why they're the top of my C plus tier. The reason why they're the top of my C plus tier is because when they were driving, they looked impressive. Now, I will say some of their driving decisions I was a little concerned about. Like sometimes they just would rather gather than shoot. But when they were shooting, they looked amazing. Occasionally, I saw some technical driving errors, like getting stuck on fuel, but for the most part, they looked impressive. And so, the only reason why I don't think they're in the B tier is because their auto is just lacking. But if they had that auto, they would definitely be in my B tier. Now to our B tier robots. Starting us off is going to be Team 2771 Code Red Robotics. And starting off with them, I worry because when I look at this B tier, we have 3 really distinct skill levels. And so I'm actually kind of hesitant to put them in a true B, and if maybe a B minus is more appropriate. Because yes, their point contribution is significantly higher than the C plus robots. And that's why, like when I look up the objective data, they have to be in the B tier. But what really stands out to me is everything that they're not in the B tier. So yes, they have a fancy side auto, and that's great, but it's not anything like the other B tier robots. It's not like anything like the A tier robots. It's more similar to a C tier robot than anything else. Even worse than that, you look at their robot, and so they don't have a turret. They score, but it's more similar to like a C tier and how they're scoring. And on top of that, they're driving. I mean, you see mistakes like getting stuck on the ramp. You see their intake, and it just doesn't pick up as well as you'd expect and their driving decisions are sometimes just bad. So yes, their point contributions for sure put them in this B tier. I just think they belong near the bottom of it. And so then when we look at our next team, 3620, the Average Joes, they're a different story. I think 3620 has a great auto. I think they have a great shooter. I mean, their turret allows them to drive while shooting. I mean, it looks great. The issue I have with them is so they're sometimes miss some shots, but even worse, they're getting penalties. And this the lack of rule knowledge is what separate the good teams from the great teams. And unless they learn their rules, they're never going to be a great team. But to counteract what I just said, even when the Average Joes are off and making and just not on their A game, they are still a competitive robot. So when they are getting penalties, messing up, not doing the right things, they're still a competitive robot. So I think they are a solid B robot. Now, this is the contrast with the next team, 7220, the Steel Falcons. Now, the Steel Falcons have it all. They have a great auto, they have a great teleop, and quite frankly, they just have a great robot as a whole. They drive well, they don't make mistakes, they're not causing penalties. So yeah, I'm more than happy to call them a B plus robot. And I know this is crazy to not call them an A robot, but there's already 5 A robots. And I think just points wise, they're just a little bit lower than that upper tier, but it's not like they aren't solid. This is a rock solid robot that's doing everything right. And I would not be surprised if they're super competitive at this event. So I think 7220 is exactly what you're looking for in a B plus robot for sure. A very strong B bot. All right, let's talk about our A tier robots. Now, this event, Kentwood, has 5 A tier robots. So this is a lot of A tier robots, meaning that any one of these robots are expected to win it all. I think they all have proven that they're solid, strong robots, and you're not going to see with these ones huge differences between the bots. So I just kind of wanted to talk about them and show them and show where I'm seeing them. But like I said, any one of these could be that top bot that wins it all. I don't see any of these being too much different than the other ones. So starting off, you have 1023. I think they have a solid auto, a solid teleop. They only have one weakness, which is why I put them at the bottom of this list, was that, I mean, I think when it comes to Hungry Hungry Hippos, where you're trying to go into the center and pull balls out and put them to your side, they're a little bit weaker at that, but not significantly. The next robot is 2075, Team Enigma. Now, Team Enigma, they were the number 1 captain at Muskegon, and they led the number 1 alliance. So I don't think there's too much to say. They're a very solid bot all around. And just like that is our next robot, 5166, the Fabricators. They were number 1 at Midland. So just another bot that's super solid. Now we're going to get to Team 4967. Now, they weren't the number 1 bot at their event. They did win it all. So I think that just their strength shows as well. So I have no faith that one team is not a very solid bot. But ultimately, the number 1 bot at this event, and like I said, it's super close with all those other A tier robots. I view them all very similarly strengthed, but the number 1 bot is going to be 10633 Beebotics. And the only distinguishing factor I saw that they had compared to the other A tier robots was I thought that their driving was just a little bit cleaner. But like I said, this is very subjective and very, very thin margins. But this is how I predict this event going. I predict at the very top level, it's going to be really competitive between these 5 robots. And I'm really excited to see which one of these actually do come out on top and who is going to be our winner at this event. And just so you remember, like and subscribe so you can get more content like this.